Wireless charging is popular on many mobile devices these days, but most of the rechargeable flashlights either have a cable that you need to plug in or have magnetic connections on the back, here like my Olight Warrior X. Brinyte has come up with a flashlight that uses an inductive charging system to charge up the light. Today I have a prototype version of the Brinyte WT01 Apollo. Thanks to them for sending it to me to take a look at. So the packaging my light came in isn't a representation of the final product, but this is, I'll roll in pictures here of what it looks like. It came in a brown cardboard box, and the accessories included the light itself, an unbranded generic 30,000 milliamp hour protected button top 18650 battery, generic international 2 amp AC USB adapter with US plug adapter, the charging cradle, as you can see here, and micro USB cable. And this light is made from aluminum, and it'll be offered in a sand color and a anodized black. My prototype is in that sand color, and unfortunately on mine it's paint and not the final anodized version. I've been assured that in the final production version it'll be anodized and be more durable. In my version here, I've got a little bit of scratching already just from shipping, and that's without any writing in any bags or anything like that. As far as design, this is a larger light for sure. It's capable of running 18650 and 26650 batteries. Starting out the tail cap here, it's pretty generic, pretty simple. It's flat. It does tail stand well. You've got no grip rings here or anything, and that's because the tail cap is glued on in this version. You've got a little cigar ring here, so you can do a cigar pinch style grip, although with the 26650 battery that's a little hard to do in my opinion. The body tube here is really fairly boring. It's just got some areas milled into it, some rings, and then some flats where they've got the writing for the light. The flats don't line up, which is something unfortunately that I like to see. If I screw it down real tight, it gets close, but not quite close enough. The head here, you've got some heat sinking. They're not very deep. It's kind of plain again. You've got a flat, which I like that flat. It lets you orient your finger on the bottom while holding the button here. The button's a silicone cover. Underneath are 2 LEDs, green and red, for charging indications that I'll get there in a minute. This front bezel is removable. It does unscrew to let you inside the light. Looking inside there, you've got a smooth reflector, and the LED is nicely centered. Taking a look on the inside here, you can see the head, not a whole lot to it. Interestingly though, it's doesn't have any way to unscrew. Most lights unscrew through the back, you can see there, but this is almost press fit in. You can see the threads here are square cut. They're very fine in nature, and I'd really like this to be a little bit coarser. It would thread on there with less of it. If they were coarser, they would thread on easier and less chance of cross-threading. You've got to be fairly careful with these such fine threads. Here is the inside. As I said, here's the cell that it came with. Just generic, no branded cell. One thing I do like, it comes with a very sturdy, nice plastic spacer here. The light runs 26650 batteries as well, and you can see the double wall construction there. So that's what it's like with a keep power protected 26650 in there. It's a fairly tight fit, nothing bad about that or anything. And that's one thing to note here, and I'll talk about it later, but when you do put in a battery and screw it together, if the light does come on in low mode. Not many lights do that, and I don't think it's really a benefit. I measured the overall length of this light at 156 millimeters, width at its widest point at 45 millimeters, and at its thinner at 33. Weight with the included battery was 313 grams. While this light is capable of running a 26650 battery and its double wall construction, to me it just feels a bit long and thick, and let me compare it to a few competition lights that are kind of similar but different at the same time. So here's a Woobin T70 on top there. It is a 26650 light, not rechargeable via, no, it is micro USB rechargeable, I forgot there. And you can see it's considerably shorter and quite a bit thinner in the body, just for comparison's sake. Here is an Olight Warrior X. Also another light that's kind of designed for that medium range thrower. This uses an 18650, so it's considerably thinner in the body, which you'd expect. It is also rechargeable via the tail cap here, and you can see it's quite a bit shorter as well. So, you know, this Brinyte is just a little big, I feel, and kind of generic in its look. This light does use the SST40 LED with a deep smooth reflector, and it's a pretty neutral white color. The SST40 is a pretty good LED in my opinion. It doesn't seem to suffer any noticeable rainbow, but it does seem to turn a little bit more green in lower output modes. The beam's more of a thrower, as a small hot center with a small corona area around it before it fades into the spill. I did my runtime testing with the included 3000 milliamp hour generic button type cell it came with. And I'll put in a graph here of what that looks like. One thing that I was impressed with was how long the light ran on high and turbo. Most of these lights either time down after just a few minutes, and the Brinyte definitely seemed to go longer and not get as hot. Now I think that's a combination of that size. You have more thermal mass there to dissipate heat. So today I've got the Brinyte WT01, and this is a prototype. It's running a luminous SST40 LED, and it's more of a thrower style light. And this is the brightness that the light comes in on in default. So you can see here, it's a fairly neutral white, nice tint to the beam. You can see it's definitely got a throw, but it's got some spill to it here as I go over. And it starts on its high mode, not turbo. And I come down to medium here, low. You can see here's my deck. We're all familiar with that. Off into the yard. So this isn't very many lumens, but it still throws decently well. And this is off. If I go again, here is turbo, 1100 lumens, and you can easily pick out those trees at the school, no problem there. Probably one of the tighter, better beams without actually seeing the beam. I'm really liking this LED. It's a nice LED. Just a little show of color tint differences. This is relatively neutral here, maybe slightly cool. And I've got my MSR D4 with the Nisha LEDs here with the high CRI. And you can see it's just a little bit warmer tint to it. And there is the luminous SST. So still a nice tint, and that's the MSR. Different style lights, but gives you a good idea of color temperature index. UI in this light is kind of non-traditional, but it's not really complicated. It has 4 output modes of constant light, starting off at high, as you can see here, and then it decreases to medium, low, and that is then the lower mode. And you press again to shut off. Press the power button again and you get turbo. And then it steps through all the lower modes as well. So just a little bit different UI there. Mode spacing is pretty even to the eye. Output, Brinyte lists the outputs as turbo as 1100 lumens, high as 430 lumens, low as 70 lumens, low as 10 lumens, and SOS and strobe is 1100 lumens. So when the light's on, you long press for 2 seconds and you get the blinking modes, you get a strobe, and then an SOS, and you have to go through both those to return to the mode you were on previously. There are no shortcuts to go from turbo or to go to off. So here, I want to turn the light off. I've got to step through those higher modes to then turn it off. That is something that I'd really like if the light changed, is that you had a shortcut at least for off. One thing to note here, when the light is recharging, I'll just put it on the base here, and you can see the light is green there. When you pull it off, the light does come on. So that can be used as an emergency power feature. I'll talk about that here when I talk about recharging. So, as I mentioned, this light uses a wireless inductive charging system in its cradle here, and this is the cradle itself. It's just a pretty simple cup almost. It uses micro USB here on the backside and has a little bit of rubber to keep it from moving around, which is a nice touch. There's no instructions or anything because it's really simple to use. You just put the light in just like this and let it sit on your table to charge. This is Qi charging, I do believe. I've got my Anker wireless charger here that I reviewed previously, and this is going to be a little bit hard to see, but the light and the charger kind of freak out. I believe that's because it's trying to charge but can't, and I think that coil structure is mainly around the tail cap here because that gives a larger surface area. But if I put it on here, you can see the light kind of blinks. The charger itself blinks. You can kind of barely see the blue LEDs, but it's trying to charge here and just can't. And I've tried different angles and things and just can't quite get it to charge. I don't think I can get enough of that coil to be exposed. So you got to stick with the charger that it comes with here, which is okay. The cradle, one thing I did note about the cradle here when I had it plugged into my testing setup, it draws 0.2 amps, about 1 watt on standby regardless of if it's charging or not. And that's kind of high for modern electronics in sleep mode. As I mentioned, when charging, there's an LED here that goes red, and when fully charged, it goes green. I observed a charge rate of 1.2 amps during charging, so a flat battery took 3 hours and 30 minutes to fully charge. The charging curve was pretty flat, not the usual taper at the end, which is a little bit strange. I did measure the cell when it was done, and it measured at 4.17 volts, which is acceptable. As I mentioned before, one feature I kind of like it, when we're charging here, you remove the charger, the light comes on automatically in low mode, or when the power is stopped, say you unplug the USB. I could see this being useful for, like in your house, if you were to lose mains power, it'd help you locate the light. So that's something to keep in mind. I don't know if I'll use this in my kitchen or maybe take it to work and leave it as kind of an emergency preparedness type light at work. So for me, the pros are, it uses an SST40 LED. That's a newer LED and one that I am enjoying so far. I like that there are colors being offered from the beginning, no special editions or things like that. Hopefully the anodizing will be more durable. And it's nice to see someone try inductive charging on a flashlight. For me, the cons are, it's kind of a chunky light. And personally, I don't find it very attractive. And the UI is just different. I'd like a long press to turn the light off, maybe a double click to go to turbo and a triple click to go to strobe. For me, that's a mode I like. So my conclusion is I like the idea of wireless charging that doesn't have exposed contacts if it doesn't cost you the light being larger. Design-wise, I feel like this light's just a little too generic for me. I don't love that the tail cap is glued in place, but understand why they're doing it. And I'd love to see them go back to the drawing board and try to reduce the overall length of this light and maybe add some more interesting design features. Like I mentioned, I like the emergency power feature of this light, and I think I'll either set it in my kitchen or maybe take it to work and use as kind of an emergency preparedness type light. So when the power goes off, it can easily be found. I'd like to see it at a minimum a UI tweak to allow you to shut off the light without cycling all the way through the other modes. It's fun taking a look at a prototype light. That's not something I get to do every day. And now let's see if Brinyte makes any changes to the production version before I can definitely give it a recommendation or not. Thanks for watching this video, guys. If you've got any questions, please leave them in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer them. And let me know if you'd like to see more videos about prototype flashlights.